How do you describe the Major League Baseball playoffs? One word.
Thrilling.
Whoa, wasn't expecting that.
Thrilling. Yes. I mean,
okay. Can you explain how one series is defined by home field advantage and the other one isn't?
Right. Well, I'll begin with this. In Philadelphia. So right now, I'm in Phoenix here, getting ready for Game 4 of our NLCS. I'm covering it here for MLB Network. So I've been living this series. Certainly, I've been watching the Lone Star series, but I would say that the atmosphere in Philadelphia was extraordinary. One of the loudest ballparks I've ever experienced, especially for a non-dome. And now in Phoenix, I thought the Diamondbacks fans showed up in huge numbers and with a ton of noise yesterday. A walk-off win for the D-backs. They're back in the series now. And the overall point that I would make, John and Dave, on this is that the conversation around the quality of play that we saw all season long with the pitch timer, bigger bases, a lot of other elements that have changed in the sport, it's resulting in a better product. And I know just from talking to people here, whether it's media, officials, we're all excited about what we're watching right now. It is a better version of the game than we had even a year ago, and with a lot of athleticism and excitement. So I've been thrilled by what we've seen so far, and can't wait for Game 4.
You have a word, John?
I wasn't expecting you to ask me a question, Dave. I'm not used to this. My word is predictable more than anything else. I even though I talked about the home and road situation,
that's predictable for Houston.
Yeah, for Houston. Yeah. I've had a problem with the playoffs. I had a problem with the play-in tournament, whatever you want to call that, the 3-game series. I now almost feel, and I mentioned this to you yesterday, Dave, and JP, you can jump in. I almost feel that the playoffs are getting too long. This is the longest regular season in any major professional sport in North America. And now we're getting to the point where the playoffs are almost as long as the NBA and the NHL. And that's a concern for me. I'm ready for the World Series to start, and we're not there yet.
That's a different answer than brilliant, JP.
Well, here's what I would say about the format. In baseball, we still have fewer teams making it than in the NBA or the NHL. I realize different number of games in the regular season, but we do have a smaller postseason field than either of those two sports. We also have a playoff format, to your point, John, that is basically half as long in terms of days.
Yeah.
Days spent watching it. As a general rule, the Stanley Cup playoffs are 2 months, and the Major League Baseball playoffs are 1 month. Yes, we'll go a bit into November, but from a competitive standpoint and what making the playoffs means to teams financially, competitively, having 6 teams make the playoffs in each league, from my perspective, is a fair number. Now, we can talk about the format and how the top 2 seeds actually don't have much of an advantage competitively against the teams that have won their wild card series. And certainly that's been the case this year, with the top 2 seeds in the National League both losing and one of the top 2 seeds in the American League losing. I think those are both really important data points, including the fact that the Orioles were swept and the Dodgers were swept. So clearly the layoff does not work to the benefit of those teams. And yet, last year, we saw the Houston Astros make it to the World Series. They had a bye, and they did not even lose a game in the American League playoffs. They went a perfect 7-0. So, to me, there are still some imperfections to work through. In general, the format is a good one. And I think we're seeing, whether it's Baltimore, the revival of excitement for the sport in that great baseball city, certainly being here in Phoenix now is great to see the fan base here engaged as well. And all of those things to John's point, the predictability of it all, we may see a rematch of last year's World Series.
Yeah.
The
But
Phillies-
okay, Dave, Dave, I get to ask you, in a word, how would you describe the Major League Baseball playoffs?
For me, disappointing. I think they can be saved if it's the Phillies against Houston. The Phillies have grabbed most of the headlines with all of their home runs, and the Astros are the somewhat despised defending champions. I think Philly-Houston is the marquee matchup, and probably, to your word, John, the predictable matchup. But in terms of discussing the format in any sport, there's never an ending to it. There's never a perfect answer. I would compare it to discussing how to solve Toronto's traffic problems. And
You're big on these Toronto traffic problems these days.
Well, no, I mean the perfect headline of the week, maybe of the year, was in the Toronto Star the other day, which said Toronto is 1 hour away from Toronto.
That is well said. I have not spent as much time in my life stuck on the Gardner as either of you, but I do chuckle at that line and know what it means.
Well, for all the home runs hit by the Phillies, I've said that that has captured everyone's imagination until last night, when unpredictably, John, the Phillies didn't hit rookie pitcher Brandon Pfaadt. Now, neither did the Dodgers, but the Diamondbacks managed to score one more run in a 2-1 game. But the star of the playoffs is Yordon Alvarez. Unless you're the opposing team, you want to see him come to the plate with men on base. He leads the playoffs in just about every offensive category imaginable. Obviously, home runs, RBIs, slugging, OPS. He's a monster. Almost hit another grand slam last night, but even the sac fly that came in on that put Houston in front to stay. He's a real problem for an opposing pitcher. And now that Jose Altuve is getting on base from the leadoff spot, Houston looks a lot stronger than it might have before. And as you say, John, if Houston is playing across the state in Arlington, it looks like they're almost unbeatable. They're 8-1 now in the Rangers' home park, and they win and go home and clinch. I'm sure they're happy, but maybe they don't want to go home. They're going to rent Globe Life Field for the rest of the playoffs. I don't know.
Well, the Astros have been so good on the road, JP, this year all along. Is there any explanation for it? I mean, is there too much pressure to play at home?
John, it's a great question. And late in the regular season, we were talking to Dusty Baker about that exact point, and he wondered if maybe when they're home, are they getting pulled in different directions, whether it's different appearances in town, family. There's always a lot going on when you're home, and maybe that when you're on the road as more of a veteran team, you're just focused on baseball, and perhaps that focus helps them dial it in a bit more. That was one of Dusty's theories, but it is remarkable to see a team play this well on the road, especially against a quality opponent in your own division like the Rangers. And I think Dave's point about Yordon Alvarez is very accurate. I thought it was interesting to see David Ortiz on the Fox postgame show, and I'm paraphrasing here. He told Yordon, "You remind me of me."
Yeah.
And that's a pretty high praise from one of the most clutch playoff hitters we've seen in our lives. So pretty remarkable. I'm with you. I've been able to watch Yordon play a lot, especially in the playoffs in person the last few years, and he's a marvel. What he's able to do is he's just an extraordinary player who really seems to focus in the big moments. And I remember last year interviewing him. He had his family there, able to watch him play, which was very, very special for him coming from Cuba. So he's a very, very sincere, just a gentle man who in the batter's box is a menace. And it's a lot of fun to watch.